Hello, hello, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Cleared Cast. I'm Katie, and you know me. Today, we're going to be chatting with Brad of the amazing soft rock band Silence and Light. So the band started in 2017, and they're really special because the members all draw on their experiences as special operations veterans. So they were founded obviously to create some killer rock music, but also to raise awareness about some of the issues that veterans face, which is very important to clearance jobs. So they're also committed to giving back, which is something that I love. And the band has contributed to Warrior's Heart and the Marine Raider Foundation specifically. So we'll get into those organizations a little bit and a campaign that we're going to be running for November. So Brad, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie, for having me on. And it's great to get on a new platform and talk to new people and, common interests and backgrounds and everything else. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's funny. I will mention, so the reason we were connected, someone had sent your information over after a meme that I put together with one of your band members, Jason. So that went viral and everybody was like, well, you got to talk to Brad.
Oh, that's funny. They show up all the time. And then it's interesting because social media, and you probably know this to some degree, you feel like you're beating a dead horse with anything that you post and try and let people know. And the reality is people are only seeing like a tenth of what you put out. So they don't necessarily get all the information. So there's this fine line between posting something that's information to let people know and going overboard with that. And so I'm always kind of walking that line. To this day, and literally today, I had people that were sending me Jason, when he was playing with Nirvana, videos, and they sent me via DM, and then they said, hey, did you ever get a chance to run across this cat in your, military career? And I'm like, dude, it's a bandmate. Like, you follow me, it's not right. It's not like we're two ships passing in the night, like right. You follow me, you see everything that I post. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, that's another conversation, is all of the funny people you come across on social media. But so today, let's talk about your story, starting all the way from joining the military. Tell us, how did it go? What motivated you? What happened there?
Let's see. How long do we have?
As long as it takes. I got a cup of Joe.
Okay. Because I can long-wind this, or I can get to the point. So in December of 1989, and this isn't something that I realized necessarily until just kind of recently in talking about this, but in December of 1989, three things happened. And one of them was the invasion of Panama, and the Rangers jumped into Rio Hato and Tres Tucuman airfields in Panama in support of Delta Force coming in and capturing Manuel Noriega. And I saw some of that on the news. The band that I was playing in at the time, and really was trying to like ramp up and do something in the DC area. And there were a lot of really well-known bands that we were kind of following in their footsteps and could have slid in and done something. And it just kind of fell apart. So that was the second thing. And it kind of left me with a, do I rebuild this? Do I take 3 years? I'm 20 years of age. Do I take 3 years to rebuild another band with fractured members of this group? And, who knows how long it's going to take and all that? Or do I try something new? And the third thing that happened was I had a friend, a high school buddy that had joined the Air Force, and I hadn't seen him since he joined. So he had gone through basic training and AIT, so his MOS, Military Occupational Specialty School, and then he was home for like Christmas vacation. And it could have been December, that could have been January, I don't remember exactly. And he told me about these guys that came recruiting for a special unit in the Air Force that jumped in behind enemy lines and rescued down pilots. And I was like, wow, that sounds kind of cool. So between the Ranger thing, the band falling apart, and then this Air Force, kind of special mission thing, that was kind of where my mind frame was at that time.
Sure. Well, so did you finish out with Air Force, or so tell us about your journey through there?
Yeah, so I originally went and talked with the Air Force recruiter, and he was giving me a load of BS saying that he could get me a contract. And at that time, I don't know if they do now, so I don't want to speak to what joining the Air Force is like in 2021, but in 1989, 1990, I think 1990, very beginning was when I was talking with the guy, they couldn't give you a contract. And so the guy kept lying to me saying, well, if you just sign up and I'll take care of the paperwork and make sure that you get the opportunity, and I'll give you something in writing, which was all BS. And so I went back and forth with the recruiter for probably a month, and would go up there and see him and would leave disappointed and would go see him. And I just wanted to be given the opportunity to try. And I didn't know anything about the military. My fear was I would be in the middle of basic training and they would say, oh, hey, Thomas, we need a cook in Alaska and you're a good cook, so off you go. And, I didn't know anything about it. So anyway, I was leaving one day and the Army recruiter was like, hey, what are you doing here, man? And I said, well, I'm talking with this Air Force cap, but he won't guarantee me anything. He won't give me anything in writing. And he goes, I can give you whatever you want in writing today. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be in Delta Force. And he goes, well, you can't do that. You got to do something first, like Special Forces. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And he said, well, you can't do that either. You got to be something before that, like a Ranger. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And he said, I can give you a Ranger contract today. And that's what started that whole process.
Wow. How things could have been so different, don't you think, if you would have waited around for the BS to come true?
Yeah, I don't think that it ever was going to. And I think even I kind of saw through that. But, that's one of the things I get asked a lot about through social media, and kids hitting me up and asking me about, what do you think? Should I do this thing or should I do that thing? And I tell them all the same thing. You just have to do what's right for you. I just wanted to be guaranteed the right to try. And I understood that, I may not make it, obviously, or, I could get hurt and then therefore never be able to attend. But I just wanted to be guaranteed the right to at least be able to try something and not, get farmed out to some other job that I didn't want to do.
Sure. Well, so Army Ranger then, what happened from there?
So I went through, I didn't even know this, but I was given a Ranger contract. And, there are things that happen from time to time, world events that change contracts or change, anything that's guaranteed isn't really guaranteed. I signed in the Army in, I'll say, May of 1990. And over that summer, I couldn't get in until November of 90. Everything was like a delayed enlistment. There was no sign up and leave the next day for basic training because the military at that time, they were downsizing and, we weren't engaged in war. It was a different military. And most of the people that joined the military at that time were there for college money, really. So anyway, I signed in May. I couldn't get in until November. And over that summer of 1990 is when Desert Shield kicked off, which was kind of America's build up to what would become Desert Storm. So over the summer, the floodgates opened and they recognized that, hey, we need more people. We could be in an extended war with Iraq. Who knows what's going to happen? So all of a sudden it was like they let everybody in. So I got to basic training and I was, infantry was my MOS. So I went to basic training. I went to AIT for infantry, which was kind of the same thing as basic training. I didn't really understand that there was a difference at the time. Then I went to airborne school, and then I went to a 3-week-long Ranger indoctrination program, which was just like massive hazing and physical activity and things like that. And then at the end, you get assigned to a Ranger battalion. And that takes me to, we'll say, April of 1991. That is when I got assigned to B Company 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Okay. So, working through, your career in the military, a lot of the clearance jobs audience, having a security clearance is the biggest eligibility requirement. And so that naturally is a lot of folks coming out of the military. So what pain points do you recall when you finally did sort of get back into the civilian world? How did that work out for you?
Well, interestingly, because you touched on the clearance piece, security clearance piece. I remember in the Ranger Regiment at that time, and probably is still the case, they don't have time to process all the security clearances for guys that are coming in that may not even be there in 3 weeks. So they kind of go and they do a pretty quick background check on you and kind of get your clearance up and running, and I think grant you an interim, secret
Sure.
clearance or something along those lines. And then they refine that over the years. I spent 4 years in the Ranger, 5 years in the Ranger Battalion. I deployed to Mogadishu as a part of Black Hawk Down, and then later went to a recon detachment within the Ranger Regiment and did that for about 3 years, and then ultimately ended up in Delta Force and spent 12 years there, and that's where I retired from, and was granted a TSSCI, Gamma, super crazy, whatever,
Sure.
security clearance. So just throw that out there because maybe people would want to know how that works.
Sure.
So pain points exiting the military? Is that the question?
Yeah. Everybody has them. Everybody says, well, they may have changed, but I'm sure there is some that when you transitioned out that folks are feeling today.
Sure. I think the commonality is this feeling or loss of identity, and the thing that we did and sacrificed to be for however long we did it, it's no longer who you are. It might be a part of who you are, but it's not any longer, this isn't the thing that I identify with. So I think the thing that stood out to me was kind of going into the whole retirement process. And I did 20 years and retired in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to shit talk the retirement process in 2010 as if it's the same in 2021. But really, I think it's mostly the same. I mean, the military, their job is to bring in new recruits, get them trained, and go fight wars. It's not to make you feel good about your service. It's not to, give you $50,000 a day for, the most lavish counseling and spa treatments, right? The military is built to go fight wars. That's what it's intended to do. So I recognize going into the transition process that, number one, I'm going to lose my identity. Who am I now? What motivates me? How can I gain this sense of purpose that I've felt for the last 20 years of sacrificing and war fighting and things like that? And then the other was recognizing that nobody owes me anything. I'm not a victim. I signed up to do this, and what's the best avenue? So when I think of retiring, the pain points for me, as an example, I moved to Manhattan from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I'd spent 12 years. And I was promised this amazing healthcare that is free and you can just go to that's not the way that it works. And, when you're coming from a special mission unit, everything is done for you. You don't have to go outside of that compound to do anything, whether it's pay, finance, transportation, nothing. Everything is kind of self-contained. And so I tell people, especially coming from that world, that you don't have any experience working the system and understanding how the system works because it's all done for you. And so in that regard, a specialist in the 82nd Airborne that goes to WOMAC and understands how that process works probably is better skilled at the process than a sergeant major with 35 years in the Army that's been in Delta Force for 20 years. And so it really is kind of understanding, what you're up against, and that you're now responsible for you.